Hi, in this chapter we shall look at fear and failure. In chapter 6, Catmull talk about fear and failure in the context of Pixar. While they were developing Toy Story 3, everything was smooth. There were no major problems of slip-up. At that time, Steve Jobs told Catmull to watch out, because if everything is so smooth sailing, that's a dangerous place to be. Well, the author mentioned that failure is often an opportunity to grow. It's not a necessary evil, but they are an inevitable consequences of doing something new. Failure is painful, and you have to fail early and fail fast. Just like, for example, if you want to learn how to ride a bike or learn how to play a guitar, you do not only strum once, right? So Catmull mentioned that he created a culture that allows his employees to fail in their job. He said that we the people are very driven by the desire to avoid mistakes. But he emphasized that the cost of preventing errors is often far greater than the cost of fixing them. And we thought that we can outsmart the system. We try to avoid failures by outthinking it. And there was once the government came up with this award named Golden Fleece Award, where it is used to detect government-funded projects that are losing money. But to the author Catmull, if you are funding thousands of research projects every year, definitely some will have obvious impact, some will go nowhere. Well, this award technically implies that researchers should know the result before they do their research. And for Catmull, this is nonsense. And the fear-based failure adverse culture will try to avoid risk and repeat something that's safe, that has been good enough in the past. So this will result that the team will come up with a derivative work rather than some innovation. And that's why Catmull was he decides that Pixar should have a fearless culture. For example, he talked about the movie Monster Inc. Monster Inc., when the title was first constructed, it was altogether a very different story. The plot was telling about a story. No, the plot was revolving about a 30-year-old man who was coping with a cast of frightening characters that only he could see. He's an accountant and he hates his job. On the day his moms give him a book with some drawings, then suddenly the monsters show up and started going crazy. And the man started to follow this monster. He becomes friends with them, conquers the fear, and those monsters suddenly and slowly disappear. But then, as you all know, Monster Inc. became a very different movie. Instead of this accountant old man, there was these two monsters that were supposed to came to this girl, the small girl, little girl world, and try to scare her. But instead, they became friends, and it used a different story than the original one. But even though it took almost a year for the director to correct the story, Catmull thinks that any outcome is a good outcome because it yields new information. Of course, he mentioned that there are some areas in which a zero failure is essential. For example, like commercial flying, banks, like extra zero will probably bring the bank down. Well, failure-free is crucial to some industry, but according to Catmull, this does not mean that it should be a goal in all of them. If you want to talk about failure, you have to talk about this movie, New. I think nobody has seen this movie before, right? This was the only movie that Pixar has cancelled until today. The idea for this movie was really strong in the early stage. It tells a tadpole that lives in a cage, and he could see a flowchart on the wall that spelled out the mating rituals of his species. Because he was lonely, he would practice the step day in and day out, getting ready for the scientists to capture him a girlfriend. Unfortunately, the finding mating ritual was blocked by the coffee machine, and the story goes on. It was a fantastic idea in the very first place, but the movie was stuck in the middle, and because they see that the story was going nowhere, so Pixar took the decision to shut it down. And Ed Catmull mentioned a very important criteria where the top management should start to step in. If the crew under the director starts to lose confidence on their director, it is the time for the management to step in and correct it. 3 months later, if the movie is unchanged from the message of brain trust, it should be the second criteria to consider to change the director or just to shut down that movie. And there's this usual message to managers. Develop people, help them grow, make sure everything goes smoothly. But there will always be complaint of not enough results. But very often, the managers find themselves being overwritten by the development path, being overwritten by deadlines, and there was absolutely no nurturing of their staff. And also, managers tend to be dislike, or they hate to be surprised in the meeting because it is a sign of disrespect. But according to the author, if the managers do not like to be surprised in the meeting, it means that they are pre-meeting before meetings, and they will eat up a lot of times. So for him, managers should be able to tolerate surprise, and trust is the best tool for driving out our fear. And he quoted these words: trusting others does not mean that they will not make any mistake. You have to trust them that they will actually help to solve it. Your employees are smart. That's why you hire them. So you must treat them that way, said Ed Catmull in this book. And when Toy Story came out, the public lauded its crew for not creating any problem. In fact, not many people knew that the team was offended by this remark, because that meant that they hadn't tried as hard as their colleagues on other films. And Ed Catmull said that he was thrilled with this reaction because it proves that the culture in Pixar is healthy.